and welcome to ABCQueer's panel exploring what it's like coming out online. It's Mardi Gras season, and as you just saw, the ABC is broadcasting Mardi Gras this year. And today's event, in collaboration with Meta, is part of a stack of content we're delivering for LGBTQIA+ folks and our wonderful allies on the lead up to the parade. Before we get into it, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land that I'm hosting from, the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, and pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging. And I'd like to extend that to the traditional owners of the lands that you beautiful people are on today as well. My name's Mon Shafter. My pronouns are they, them. What are your pronouns? And I'm stoked to be one of the ABC's Mardi Gras hosts this year. I also lead ABC Queer, which delivers a range of content to younger LGBTQIA+ Australians. We have an incredible Instagram community, a newsletter you can subscribe to, as well as a podcast called Innies and Outies that explores uniquely Australian stories about coming out or sometimes staying in. And it's through that Innies and Outies lens that today we're exploring what it's like coming out online. So social media is an amazing place to be queer. No matter where we live, we can connect with people like ourselves anywhere. Access with all the info that we're not taught at school, and we can explore our identities. But it's not always good. There's also a darker side. The internet has trolls, bullies, and plenty of misinformation. And so it's important that we take care of ourselves and each other in online spaces. So to help us navigate through all this are three incredible guests who are very online. We have comedian and social media star Matt Hay, aka Alright Hay, Liz Duck Chong, one of the creators of ACON's Trans Hub, fantastic digital resource, and slam poet and peer support worker from Muslim Peers Project, Muhammad Awad. You're also going to hear from a range of other familiar queer faces from social media who've recorded messages for you about their own experiences. So let's get to know our guests a little better. Matt, you're Australia's biggest glamazon and a prolific creator. Can you please tell us a bit more about the world of Alright Hay?
Sure, definitely. Hello, everyone. My name is Matt. I'm better known on the internet as Alright Hey. I'm a content creator, comedian, DJ, drag queen, glamazon, and I'm from Sydney, Australia. And look, my whole life I've just wanted to make people laugh. I've wanted to entertain people, and I do that any way that I can online. Whatever social media platform it is, I'm on all of them, and I'm trying to entertain you in one way or another. So it's a great time.
Beautiful. Thanks, Matt. And Liz, you're the acting manager of trans health equity at ACON, which is a queer health organisation in New South Wales. And you're one of the creators of Trans Hub, which is a fantastic resource for the trans and gender diverse community. Can you please tell us a bit more about Trans Hub and why it's important?
Absolutely. So Trans Hub is a platform full of gender affirmation and health information for all trans people. It's specifically designed for trans people in New South Wales, but it definitely does not mean that people outside of New South Wales also can't access it and find a bunch of really useful and wonderful information. But when, we say that I'm one of the people who kind of came up with and created it, it also came from a huge context of community coming together and providing wisdom and insight and advice and resources. So it couldn't have been done without the wider trans and gender diverse community. And yeah, we're just so proud that we have this, evidence-based affirming resource that says, hey, okay, you're trans. How do you want to do that? How do you want to be your most euphoric, affirmed self? And how can we help you do that?
It's beautiful. It really is a really joyful space that you've created there. And Muhammad, the Muslim Peers Project is a collaborative Instagram page that helps support young queer Muslims. Can you tell us about the work that you do there?
Yeah, so as part of the Muslim Peers Project, I'm one of the peer workers that provide mental health support to our young queer Muslims from the age of 14 to 25. We do more than just mental health support as well. We do a lot of mentoring. We have a lot of space for creative therapies. And the goal is just to create an online space, but also a physical space as well, that queer Muslims can come and exist and talk about their experiences with gender and sexuality without needing to explain being Muslim and without needing to explain being queer, because I think that's a big barrier for a lot of people, as well as the experience of being trans as well. It's in Western Sydney, it's one of those things that we desperately needed, and I'm so glad we're finally doing this work.
Fantastic. It's such a specialised resource that you've got going on there. It's really wonderful to see. If you have any questions for our guests today or any comments you'd like to make, feel free to pop those in the chat and we'll come to them a little bit later. As I said, today you're going to hear from some familiar faces from social media. Here's a message from creator Mitchell Coombs.
G'day, Mitchell Coombs here from Is It Just Me, the podcast. Now, being a queer creator online has been kind of a breeze for me, to be honest, because I don't really buy into that whole you have to put the perfect polished version of yourself on the internet thing. I mean, my Instagram is kind of erotic, but hey, that's how I like it. I've found my people. I get to just be me. So if anyone out there is feeling a little bit like younger Mitchell used to feel, and the idea of being out and proud on the internet is kind of terrifying, my advice would be, don't worry about it. You're going to look back in many years and be like, what was I stressed about? And you don't have to do a big emotional coming out post either, unless you want to, of course. But I certainly didn't have to. No one's ever thought that I was straight. I know. Did you wonder? I know. Anyway, keep doing you, live your best life, and happy Mardi Gras.
Thank you. You're here with ABCQueer and we're exploring coming out online. Matt, I'm keen to ask you, growing up, what role did the internet play in helping you figure out who you were?
I feel like I'm so old, the internet didn't really do much, or I feel like I wasn't allowed on the internet when I was growing up and I was figuring out who I was. It kind of was that transition period of coming out in real life and just getting social media. So I was one of the first people kind of on social media. I remember changing my preferences on MySpace, rest in peace, MySpace back in the day, and changing my preferences. It was quite a liberating feeling to, I think I had female, interested in female, and changing it to interested in male on my MySpace, and it updating everyone on the bulletin board, and it being like this big social media storm at school. And it's funny because that was a memory that I had forgotten about until we spoke about these questions that you were going to ask today. So that's kind of how I came out on social media. And then of course, when I transitioned to doing YouTube videos and starting my online career, I was already out and living, as an out person. So I never came out in a YouTube video. I told my coming out story and things like that. But what's interesting about it is I have gone through a journey, a bit of a roller coaster ride of different orientations. I originally came out as gay, and then I thought maybe I'm bisexual, and then I went down the asexual route and identified as asexual. And then it was actually on social media, Tumblr, where I heard or saw a post where someone had mentioned demisexual and explained what demisexual is. And for those who don't know, it's where you need to have an emotional connection with someone before you can feel sexual attraction or want to have sex with that person. And I went, that's me. And so I identified as demisexual for a little bit. And I came out as demisexual online on Instagram and on Facebook and explained what that was. And then, the roller coaster ride kept going. And now I just identify as gay again.
See, this is why I love being queer, because we have all this language to describe who we are, and our identities can evolve and change over time. So it's wonderful to hear about the journey that you've been on, Matt. Liz, I imagine when you were growing up, there wouldn't have been a lot of trans representation in mainstream media. Can you tell us about how the internet sort of helped you discover yourself?
Absolutely. I mean, there definitely were pockets of the internet that had trans people either talking with each other or about themselves, or being talked about when I was online. I think the first little while that I was kind of figuring myself out, I'm going to age myself a little here, but the first time I started exploring some trans and queer stuff was definitely on a dial-up modem. So that sound is very, very dedicatedly connected with furtively searching things in the dead of night. But it was a pretty terrifying and isolating place, despite the fact there were people around. It was very formulaic in terms of having to be a certain way. There was this whole it was all built around survival for trans people, because that was really seen as the goal, because it was often inaccessible, the way that trans people experience harm and violence, and often murder because of who they were. was really, really real and present. And so there was this kind of big focus on like, you've just got to, you know, do these things in order to stick around. And that definitely kind of scared me in a lot of ways of, I have to be this certain specific way. And it took kind of years and years of unpicking that and of meeting more trans people and of seeing the kind of the ball rolling on media representation and trans people in community and kind of more acceptance and openness, where that kind of idea of survival slowly gave way to joy and to being kind of whatever selves we want to be and being in community. But that definitely took a little while, and I'm glad that there's this idea of like survival as being the only thing that we can think about is really kind of giving way to being like affirmed and being supported.
Cool. Thank you, Liz. And I love that you've now created this beautiful, joyful space for young trans people to find all the information that they need. Mohammed, what things did you look up on the internet growing up?
Oh my God, I'm going to embarrass myself here. But very briefly, I was very into encyclopedias as a kid because I was, no reasoning, I was just very nerdy. And I saw a picture encyclopedia one day at shops, and I begged my mom to buy it, and she's like, okay, whatever, you're weird, but buy this encyclopedia with pictures. One had a photo of these two men kissing, and it was like either the word was either homosexuality or there was gay marriage or something about it there. And I remember staring at this photo of these two men kissing, being like, oh my God, this is doing something to me. And because of this, I like ran to the internet and I Googled boy kiss boy on my Nintendo DSi. That ages me a little bit, but still. And I remember just constantly searching boy kiss boy, and I'm like looking at all these images, and my mind was exploding. And I saw the word gay, and I had only known gay as a slur. I had no idea what gay meant, and it just clicked in that moment that I was the slur. That maybe I was the slur, and I googled it, and I'm like, I am the slur, and that just took so much like healing, to come from, because I remember I experienced at that point what I call the Great Depression, which was 4 years of like onset of just being in denial of being gay, being in conflict with being gay. And I always say that 11, I'm like, it was like, I'm not gay, I'm not gay, I'm not gay, I'm not gay. 12 was like, I'm gay, I'm going to hell, I'm going to hell, I'm going to hell. 13 was like, I'm gay, I'm going to hell, but financially I will prepare before I get to hell. So I started getting a job at 13. And at 14, it was, I'm gay, who says I'm going to hell? And then the internet actually gave me a pathway to explore my queerness, but also my own religion and my own culture. And I realized how much of my religion and how much of what I was taught about religion was actually not within my religion. It was actually within culture. It was in patriarchy. It was within, colonial contexts that all these homophobic, ideas came about. And it was just liberating because I got to meet with other people and speak to other people who were like, yeah, I'm gay and I'm Muslim and I'm alive and I'm fine. And I think I am now providing that role in the community with the Muslim Peers Project. I spoke to a kid the other day who was 15, and as someone who's non-binary, they were like, oh, there are non-binary people in their 20s, like we exist after, like it's not just a phase, and we can be Muslim. It was like, it's life-changing.
Yeah, and thank you also for the work that you do, Liz Mohammed, creating amazing resources for young queer folks. So AFLW star Darcy Vescio recently came out as non-binary and was the second AFLW player to do so. Here's a message from Darcy.
G'day, I'm Darcy Vescio and I'm on Instagram at DarcyV. Earlier in the year, I had the experience of sharing that I am non-binary, and it was quite a daunting thing for me, but I guess the feeling and the thought of sharing my true self to other people far outweighed any other feeling. So I felt really privileged to be able to share that online, and my advice would be to do it at your own pace. I sort of told people in my life, so I sort of felt like a few people knew, and going online and sharing that was sort of the final piece for me. Another thing would be that even though it is public, it is your space, so you should feel like you have control over who gets to, I guess, interact with you, and anyone who does that in a negative way or just makes you feel like it's not as safe a space for other people. You should feel like you have control over who gets access to that. So good luck, and see you soon.
Thanks so much, Darcy. Calm the blues. Liz, we heard a little bit from Matt and Mohammed before about their coming out journeys. I'm keen to ask you about how you came out online, because I believe you came out in quite a big way.
Yeah, I definitely have never been one to do things in a small way, and coming out in that kind of big public way for the first time definitely wasn't an exception. So being the precocious like 17-year-old I made this whole like emotional arty short film. It was about 20 minutes long. Like, it's quite torturous to think back at it, you know, that I made all my friends and family watch this like, you know, kind of Sundance application style thing. But it was a really, like, it was a moment of real, just like fully embracing kind of who I needed to be. And also I feel like there was an element of like, if I just made like a little like few minute video or something like that, I probably would have totally chickened out. Whereas the fact that I'd like put like months and months of like production time and like After Effects work and all this stuff, like completely overproduced it, I was just like, well, damn it, the world has got to see this. So I guess I've got to come out one way or another. So it definitely helped kind of get that ball rolling a little bit. But I think in hindsight, you know, it probably could have just been like a Facebook status. It probably just could have been an email to friends and family. But it was really nice to have a project that allowed me to just like fully embrace myself. And I really definitely recommend that to people of all sexualities and genders, whether you share it publicly or not, like get those feelings out, that coming out, that fear, that joy, get it out in art, get it out in writing, in something that just like feels really personal and exciting. So you can kind of have this thing saying, hey, like, look, this is me. And like, this is exactly how I want to be seen. And I think that's a really, I don't know, really inspiring and wonderful thing to have.
Beautiful. Thank you. So there you go, folks. You can make a film and come out that way if you're inclined to do so. Ben, one of our audience members, has asked a question. I might put this to you, Mohammed, see if you might want to handle this one. Ben asks, how do you navigate having your family on social media but also being authentic?
Now, that's very, very true. I think that's such a normal and common dilemma. I would say, well, we all know of the infamous Finsta, which is your private little Finsta account. I always say, in mental health, we talk about how you have your inner circle and your outer circle, and then how that kind of expands out. I always say, find a space to create your inner circle where you can have that privacy, where other people who will support you, who will respect your journey and will respect your story, can still exist with you and still speak to you. In the Muslim Peers Project, we have a lot of people who message us who don't follow our account because they want to be discreet about it. There are people who create like private accounts to speak to us, and we give them other avenues as well. People can still email and message and all the other avenues to be able to connect with us. So if you don't feel safe yet to come out with your family around, find support networks that will support you, and enrich those and invest in those. And until you're ready to come out, I always say, you know, I always caution kids to invite people in as opposed to making a big coming out. I did a big coming out. I called it Diana Ross on my Instagram story. I captioned it Diana Ross. I did the whole thing. But I only did that when it was the last resort and when I was in my own safe space. So create a safe network, make sure you're in a safe space, and invite people in who you believe will support you. You don't need to create space on your social media or in your mind for people who don't love and support you.
That's great advice. Thanks so much, Mohammed. Let's now hear from creator Maggie Zhao, aka Yemags on Insta.
Hello, I'm Maggie Zhao, Refinery29AU's writer and producer. I'm also on my personal page at YeahMags. Being a queer creator who only recently came out, Instagram has been such a safe space and a salve, especially in times of loneliness, of questioning myself and feeling invalid in some regard. Instagram has been there to build community, and it reminds me that I am not alone.
Thank you for that. Liz, I've got a question for you. How has social media helped you affirm your identity and sense of community?
mean, I think it just has made all of those spaces that have always existed. Like, I have had the pleasure of kind of researching old archives and personals and things like that, where people of all kinds of sexualities and genders were looking for each other and looking for community spaces. And now kind of, a little bit later with kind of like forums and sections online like that, like I think social media is really just kind of that next niche of people reaching out and finding their community. Like it's something that we've always done, and I think we'll always do. And it's just a really great place to be doing that now, and a really accessible place to be doing that now. And so I feel almost like I'm kind of part of this big queer lineage of finding each other and sharing ourselves and sharing the fun parts and the tragic parts and the dirty parts and the ways that feel safe, as Mohammed was saying, in the circles that feel good and safe for you, finding the places to share that stuff. I don't know, I definitely feel so, so empowered and so joyful being around so many trans people of different experiences and histories and backgrounds. And yeah, just feel like when I'm on social media, I'm just constantly learning and growing, which I don't know, is just such a privilege.
It's great to hear. Thanks so much, Liz. As well as finding community online, Christian Hull is a creator, and he talks about how social media has helped him as a content maker building his own community online. Let's hear from him.
Hi, my name's Christian Hull. My username is @ChristianHull. I know, very imaginative. And I've been a gay content creator for my entire life, but I jumped on social media about 6 years ago, and it was the best decision I ever made. I worked in mainstream media for about 9 years, and it's very limiting. As a gay, you only usually get relegated to do the red carpet, which is fun, but it's really hard to grow. Like within the mainstream media, I found it difficult. So when I jumped online, suddenly I had created my own community, my own world, and I could make whatever content I wanted. And, flash forward 6 years, I've left full-time work, I run 2 businesses, and I have 3 full-time employees. It's fantastic.
Thanks, Christian. So, Matt, the internet can be a really amazing, affirming place, but there's also a darker side to that sometimes. Have you experienced some of the negative side? Like, have you experienced bullying or being trolled on the socials for being queer?
Definitely, all the time, still to this day, every day. There's always something new. Someone literally making me laugh at whatever they're saying, especially having so many different platforms. Like, it is sometimes hard to keep up with who's saying what where. And just for my own mental capacity, I've put things in place that can combat that. Like, I don't have any notifications on my phone, so it's not like comments are coming through and they're in my face. I sort of have to go and check my comments and things like that to see what people are saying. I have comment filters on so that if people do use slurs or say nasty things, usually it combats that. Like the algorithm or the system will know not to put it on my page. I'm also just not afraid of a block button or restrict or anything like that. If you want to come to my page and say those sorts of things, I'm not here for it. I have as you say, we have such a great sense of community. I have a great community who follows me. I'm very, very lucky that I have so many people who follow, and I don't get those very often. And if they do, they're usually with no substance. They're just someone who just wants to say something nasty. It's never anything, actually about me or who I am. It usually just is a face value kind of hate comment or troll comment. And it's sad, but I feel like after doing it for so many years, you just kind of become numb to it, and then you become not afraid to just block, delete, and get on with your day.
That's really useful advice. Thanks so much for that, Matt. Let's hear from another creator, Joe Hannum, about his experiences.
Hi, my name is Joseph Hannum. Being an LGBTQIA plus creator has been a really amazing experience for me. I've been able to find an amazing community who've been so loving and so supporting of me. I can go to them to ask them questions about anything, not just relating to sexuality. And I really want to be a role model for teenagers who are struggling to come out, because I know how it feels. I've been bullied in my past, so I really understand it. But I'm really just grateful to be supported and to be able to support others.
Good one, thank you. Before we come to some audience questions, I just wanted to remind you all that if you ever do need support, there are many services available that can help you out. QLife, for example, is a national support service for LGBTQIA+ people. The contact details for QLife are on the screen there. It's all free advice, free support. Also, Meta has just released the 2022 edition of the Safe and Strong Guide to help keep you safe on Facebook and Instagram. And they've created this resource in collaboration with community orgs like 2010 in New South Wales, ACON, Black Rainbow, and -18. And you can find that particular resource. I think the link will be in the chat, or also head to the ABCQueer Instagram account, and our link in our bio will get you there as well. Project Rocket is another organisation uniting young people against cyberbullying. That's their web URL on the screen there. You can check them out too. Okay, so thank you to our audience members for your comments and questions. Here is one from Jack. This is for the whole panel. So anyway, we'll see who wants to respond to this one. What tips would you give to young queer folks on overcoming any fear or anxiety they might have around coming out? Can I get you to respond to this one, Matt?
Sure. I think, first of all, it would be really nice to acknowledge, it's nice that you acknowledge that you have fear and anxiety. It's something that every single queer person goes through. And I think that the first thing is to go, it's okay to feel that way. It's all right to have those feelings. And it is something that took time. For a lot of my journey, it's just been about time for me, and just waiting and thinking about it and moving on when the time is right. And coming out is a really scary thing. And now I look back and I think it really wasn't that big of a deal to anyone else, at least. But for me, coming out, I know we're in the age of, we want to say things like, in the future, I hope no one has to come out. For me, coming out was a very affirming thing. And it definitely validated my identity and who I was. And for me at that time, coming out was exactly what I needed. And I just feel like you'll know when the time is right. And it's just one of those things. It's one of those pieces of advice that just sounds a bit cheesy, but at the end of the day, it's one of those things that you just figure out and it works.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for that advice, Matt. Mohammed, I might put this question to you, and this is from Maddie. She asks, how can allies become better advocates without unintentionally hijacking stories or experiences on behalf of the queer community?
I mean, what a great question. I think one of the first things I'll say is speak to the queer person or trans person that you are advocating for. Ask them what they need, ask them what they would like, ask how they would be supported. If you are going to be telling their story, make sure they are involved in that story writing process, whether it's you're working in film and media, make sure they're involved in collaborating on projects. I always say, I hate the idea of consulting. One of the things in the media, we used to bring consultants, people with lived experience onto projects to consult. And it's like, no. Collaborate with community, collaborate with those people, make sure that their voice is valued when you are speaking to them and when you are engaging with them or when you are advocating for them. I always say education is important. Make sure you're always up to date on what queer and trans language looks like, because it is ever evolving and ever changing. And it does feel like labor, but if you want to support your community or support the person that you love, that's labor that I think you need to do. If you want to be an advocate as well, I always say, always look for supervision, always look for community members for guidance in terms of how you can learn, because the honest truth is that you will make mistakes and that's okay. It's a matter of how you respond to that, not being defensive around the mistakes that you make, and always being willing to change and grow, because queer and trans people are changing and growing every day, and so is our community. And if we had to be defensive at every shift that we make in our pronouns or in our lifestyle, in the way that we live, we wouldn't get anywhere. So just be open to change, be open to learning.
Beautiful. Thanks so much, Mohammed. These are such fantastic questions, and I wish we had more time to go through all of them. But I reckon let's continue the conversation in our Facebook chat because there's some really wonderful questions there. Liz actually had to duck away. She's about to launch a fantastic new initiative at ACON. So thank you to Liz for joining us. I just wanted to thank you all for being part of this. Thank you so much to Mohammed Awad from the Muslim Peers Project, Liz Duck Chong from ACON's Trans Hub, and to the wonderful creator Matt Hay, aka All Right Hay, for sharing their experiences and expertise in today's convo about coming out online, and also to the other creators who shared their messages. And a big heartfelt thanks to you for joining us and for your comments and questions. Also shout out to my ABC colleagues and the wonderful folks at Meta for making today possible. If you'd like to rewatch today's panel or share it with your mates, we'll be sharing the full conversation over on ABCQueer on Instagram. And if you'd like to hear more from Liz and Mohammed, they also feature in a bonus episode of the Innies and Outies podcast, which goes even deeper into the topic of coming out online. That drops this Friday, and you can hear it on ABC Listen or wherever you get your podcasts. My name's Mon Shafter. I can't wait to co-host Mardi Gras this Saturday night alongside Hamish McDonald, Stephen Oliver, Courtney Act, Jeremy Fernandez, and Casey Donovan. That's from 7:30 p.m. on ABC TV and iView. Stay safe on the socials, and happy Mardi Gras.